Well, we are here.
Yes, we are.
Is everything okay? All right, it was a little sketchy.
No, we are good. We are good.
At first, I kept looking for us on Facebook, and it said, even though we say live, I wasn't seeing it, and I kept
Mhm.
refreshing the screen, refresh. I said, "Oh Lord, are we on?" But yes, we are. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode of Authors Up. We are streaming live on Facebook as well as ALH Broadcasting on YouTube. So like and share and tell everybody that Authors Up is here. We are at our favorite place to be on Sunday evenings. But sadly, we are missing one of our compadres.
Yes, we
One
are.
of the bronze girls, as I call us, is missing. But before we talk about that, welcome. How are you tonight, Ruth?
I am well. Obviously, I'm not in my home place, but you know
Yes.
what? I am here and I'm happy to be here. And I
Amen.
just want to say welcome to all our audience, wherever you may be, wherever you're tuning in from. We're glad to have you.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. As I said, Andrea's not going to be with us tonight. She's not feeling well. So you out there say some words of comfort and prayers for her because we miss her. We miss her. We don't like when all three of us not here, but we understand, life be life and sometimes and
Yep.
it's just as it is. But nevertheless, we are here and we're going to follow our normal schedule and do what we always do. And we're going to start this with our week in review. I think I'm first, huh? I'm first.
Yeah, you are.
All right. All right. My week was pretty okay. It was okay. The
Okay.
week was working and work is work. And we are off on Fridays for the summer, which everybody, for some reason this past week, everybody was counting down Thursday. Like we just can't, from 9 o'clock, people going, I just can't wait to go home.
Uh-huh.
Look forward to that Friday off. But this particular weekend was a good one for me. One of my best friends, she's the same person who I went to her birthday party 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
Her youngest son lives here. So she told me she was going to be seeing me more often because her baby's here now. And as it happened, her baby proposed to his fiance, and he
Oh.
wanted her to be here for it. Her mom came, and his mom came, but she flew in early Saturday morning and flew out early this morning. But in the space of those 24 hours, we did the best that we could to just laugh. We were
Mhm.
laughing. It was just wonderful to see it. The proposal went off without a hitch. He had some of her best friends come in as a surprise. When
Oh.
I saw them, that girl she just was crying. She could not stop crying. She was so overwhelmed. And she knew it was coming, but she didn't see all the things that he did for her. And it was just beautiful.
Okay, so if he had everyone, and again, these are your friends. You can keep it private enough, but how do you bring everyone in and her not know this is what he's planning?
I don't
Okay.
know how he did it, but his mom flew. His mom lives in Charlotte, so she's only
Okay.
2.5 away. So we were at the same hotel with her. He squared away the hotel arrangements, and they kept them away from the house. He had her go different places. It
Oh,
all just
nice.
kind of came together. He brought her best friends in at a lunch.
Okay.
He surprised her at the lunch after he popped the question privately, you know. But
Okay.
it was it all worked out when she walked back into her home. We were there, and she didn't see because she didn't know anybody's cars, because they're new to this area as well, and she
Sure.
didn't see the car. So she walked in, and we were there. She just almost fell down on the floor. It was just, I'm
Oh,
telling you.
that's so
Then they
sweet.
had a video. Other people who couldn't be there sent in little clips, and he put them all together as one video. So all the friends and family were giving their well wishes, welcoming her to the
Oh.
family. It was just beautiful. I said, I still believe in love.
Yeah, no, that kind of thing makes you. It
Yes,
just fills you. Yeah.
it's just nice. And I, like I told my friend, so I've known her boys, of course, since they were born, and to watch him now take his place, as a man, her baby, it will be 33. It's just nice to see the cycle of life, just going on. And we were like, we're
Mhm.
getting ready to go after dinner. We was like, we getting ready to go. We old, we going to bed. So that was my week, though. That was really more my weekend. So it started
Mhm.
the weekend with a lot of joy. So,
Yeah.
I'm joyful. But what about you?
Well, same as you. Work is work, but we opted to. My husband and I flew up to Michigan, where I
Hmm.
currently am, um, kind of finish up things around his father's house. But we were also up here for my husband's 35th year high school reunion.
Wow.
Yes, and the thing is, so he just, when this is the first one I've attended, and it was just, he was like, yeah, it's just a few guys getting together, a few folks, right? And I had to start doing the math, as you said, your friend's son is 33. It took me, that long to do math to figure out that it was 35 years ago that my husband graduated from high school, and it's like that makes us old.
Well,
And it was,
welcome.
it was a good get together. We ended up going to a bar. I will not tell you the name of it because it was interesting. I mean, these folks, I had heard stories about them before, and of course, my husband starts off with whatever they tell you, don't believe it. Um,
Okay.
it was just interesting. It was good. Uh, but it was just the same thing too. It's like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. It's time to go to bed.
Man, I'm tired.
So it was a good it was a good event. Everybody was like, oh, your husband is they kept going up to him and they're like, oh, you weren't lying. You are married. Because
Because he
again,
always goes without you. That's right, right.
right. So I asked him, I'm like, well, how long till the next one? He was like, well, we'll do it again in 5 years. I'm like, oh yeah, we are getting up in that age range where you can't wait for the next 10 years. So
Right. You
it was
better.
good. That
Yeah,
was the highlight of my weekend so far. So
that's good. Well,
it was
how long
just
you gonna
good.
be in Michigan?
Through Wednesday. So
Oh, okay, okay. All
yeah,
right.
it'll be a mini vacation.
Yes, yes, and that's
Hmm.
nice that you could do that, empty nester.
Yeah, that's correct. That is correct. So yeah. So it was a good weekend. It was a good week. And yeah, I'll look forward to sharing some more next week.
Yeah,
Of the
because you
rest of
have
the
more
week. So
stories.
that's it. That's it.
Oh,
But for
yes.
tonight,
Yes,
we
yes, we have
have
a
awesome guest.
wonderful author waiting in the wings, and I will be reading her biography. So let's get into it. Lynnette Mawhinney, PhD, is an award winning writer, creator, and longtime educator. Dr. Mawhinney was a former high school English teacher at the School District of Philadelphia and transitioned into teacher education. She has conducted teacher trainings in the US, Vietnam, Taiwan, Thailand, South Africa, whew, Bahrain, and Egypt. All right. She's also professor of urban education and senior associate dean for strategic academic initiatives at Rutgers University in Newark. As a secret artist, she applies her craft of visual based approaches to her research and scholarship on the recruitment and retention of teachers of color. She is the author and editor of 5 academic books. In 2020, Dr. Mawhinney was the recipient of the American Educational Studies Association's Critic Choice Book Award for her co written book, There Has to Be a Better Way: Lessons from Former Urban Teachers. Aside from academic books, she is also a children's book author. Her first book, Lulu, the One and Only, received an acclaimed starred Kirkus Review, along with awards, such as the notable Social Studies Trade Book Award by the National Council for Social Studies and the Children's Book Council. Her new book, Mamie Phipps Clark, Champion for Children, is a biography, graphic novel for youth. And that is the book that we're going to be talking with her tonight. So stay tuned. And after a brief break, we'll be back with Dr. Mawhinney.
right,
Hello,
welcome, Lynnette.
hello.
Welcome,
Hello,
welcome.
welcome to our show. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me and good evening.
Yeah, good
Good
evening to
evening.
you. Can't wait to talk about it. Yes.
All right, so normally I start by asking the author to tell us about their book, but I have to gush about your book tonight first because when I received a copy of it from your publicist, I was just impressed
I gotta get
by
one.
the
I gotta
package.
get one.
Yes.
I
And
gotta
it's
get
not, this is not to say that this is any less than any of the other books we've received, but there was just, I have a tender heart for graphic novels. I love the presentation. And even before I started reading it, I was flipping through the book and I was just, my first thought was, oh, wow, we have to get her on the show. So, and that just, once I read it, I knew, I'm like, okay, we definitely going to have to get her on the show.
Could
So,
you show it? Should you show it again for me? The people in the back
absolutely.
who don't have one yet. Can I see the back? Can I see the back? Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
It's such a
Look,
beautiful
look, look,
book.
look. It is. It is. It is a
I think it
beautiful
will go
package. It
nicely
is
on my
worth.
shelf.
That's right. So, like I said, it is a beautiful book.
It
It would
is.
be a great addition to any bookshelf. We'll just start with that. Just get the book.
Get
End
the
of
book.
story.
Let's
So,
go right ahead
yeah.
to say it. Get the book. You guys are going to want this one. Okay.
But yes. So I just wanted to say that first. But let's talk about the book anyway. So tell us about it.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for that lovely feedback. So the book is about Dr. Mamie Phipps Clark, who some people might know. It's like one of those names like, oh, I might have heard of her. And some people are like, I've never heard of her at all, right? And it's a
Mm-hmm.
biography about her life. And what's interesting is that for this, some people were like, I think I heard her name. She's usually connected with a study that actually she created as a master's student, but then developed it out later on with her husband, Kenneth Clark, who often people know that name in psychology and they forget about her.
Mm-hmm.
So this book kind of chronicles her life, growing up in Arkansas and, what that experience was like. Her father was the only a Black physician in the area, which afforded some of these other privileges, but also what does that mean for responsibility for the community?
Mm-hmm.
And then just chronicling her into undergrad. She went to Howard University, where she started this black doll, white doll experiment,
Mm-hmm.
which looked at Black youth and, showed them well, not at first it was dolls. At first it was actually drawings and paintings, but developed into dolls later on, to just see how they were understanding Black identity, right? Which doll's good, which doll's bad.
Right.
This study has been done over and over again over many years and is still referenced. But
Right.
why it's so important for U.S. context is because it was the major catalyst for the Brown versus Board of Ed decision, which is what helped to desegregate schools in America.
Right.
They often quoted the Supreme Court judges often quoted that study as being a pinnacle piece of why they made the decisions. Now, there was a ton of different court cases leading up to that.
Mm-hmm.
One of which Dr. Clark was actually involved with because they put her on the stand because she had to go against her doctoral advisor.
Right.
She was the only Black woman, she's the first Black woman to graduate from Columbia University.
Wow.
And but she was his student, but he was a, eugenicist and stuff. So she made a good case, right? If I'm your prodigy as a student, but then kind of speaking for, Black folk and what does this mean in this work? But usually, if anyone heard her at all, it stops there. Like that's where her story stops. But
Right.
she's like way more than that. So even
Mm-hmm.
past that, she went on and developed the Northside Center, which still exists almost 80 years
Yes.
now, still in
Yes.
existence in Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
And that was started to give youth in the area services like mental health services or any psychological services, and then it developed out into a school. So she was this huge visionary ahead of her time and did all this great work that's still right, like her work still resonates with all of us who's at any type of kindergarten through 12th grade schooling experience, right? Because it's like that work. The fact that she has a school that's still going and thriving, and this center that still supports the Harlem community. She did all of these amazing things, but yet her story and her voice were very much under the radar.
Right.
Which became a challenge with trying to write this book. So this wasn't a normal pathway. So the publisher reached out to me and said, hey, we have this series of extraordinary women in psychology. So another author actually started to write this story, got stuck. Can you write this book? Can you write it? And I said, sure, challenge accepted. And I was the same way, like, yeah, I've heard her name. I think that sounds familiar, maybe in some class, right? But so I got to dive into finding her, and I quickly found that it was like finding Where's Waldo. It was really hard so it took 2 years of research to research about her life. And the reason was because of gender and how gender played out at that time. And to give you an example, I was in the Schomburg Center. So I went from everywhere to do research, from the Schomburg Center to the Library of Congress, like all the places to try to find where she was. I reached out to Arkansas and to one of their historical societies down there. But I was in the Schomburg originally doing research, and a librarian and I came across a newspaper article. And this is to show why it was so hard to find her. It said, congratulations to these award recipients. And it had 3 pictures, right? So 2 white men and Dr. Clark. And it said, congratulations to, I don't remember the white names, but it was like, congratulations to Dr. John Smith. Congratulations to Dr. Sam Jones and Mrs. Kenneth Clark. So her title was gone. Her name was gone. And so, it was in that I was like, oh, I have to research differently. So I actually had to go through her husband's files in the Library of Congress to even find her story and her voice. But through there, I was able to find their love letters that they wrote each other. Yeah, I found everything. So there are actual letters in there, that are actually written from them. I think there's a great letter. So they eloped. So they got married when she was at Howard University. And at that time, if an undergrad woman got married while in school, you get kicked out. Yeah. So not for the man.
Not the man. Let's make that clear. Not the man, though.
Yep. Just the woman.
But the woman. So they went and did this in secret. So they had this secret marriage, right? Didn't tell her parents, didn't tell her anything.
Oh my God.
And then finally, right, parents at least find out. And I found the letter that like Kenneth wrote to her parents being like, oh, no, y'all mad at me. Right. And like a piece of that letter is actually in here. Right. So actually getting to use real artifacts.
Oh, my goodness.
That is awesome. So, you challenge accepted and challenge achieved.
That was a lot.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That is awesome. Yeah. So who, in understanding, I read a lot of graphic novels, and writing for a graphic novel is different than writing for a regular, novel or some sort. So what was that process like? Who made the decision that this would be a graphic novel, and how did that impact how you wrote this book?
So it was my decision, but with the amazing backing of the publisher, Imagination Press. So when I first said, challenge accepted, I said, because it's a biography, it's going to be for, middle school youth. Mm-hmm. Like it has to have parts that are graphic novel. Can I have parts that are graphic novel? And they said, absolutely. And then finally, when I did all that research and started writing it, I'm like, but it's got to be the whole thing. And so I went back to them and I'm like, okay, that's an expensive decision, right? Because more time with illustrators, what does that mean for the paper and the color? But I was like, so can I have the whole thing be graphic novel? And they said, absolutely. And I'm so thankful that they believed in me and believed in the vision of this book, because it has a huge payoff. That's what I keep hearing from the youth. Like, wow, I pick it up and I read through it, so quickly. And you can relate to it better. You can see things better. It's better than in 1948, in all prose style. Let's actually see that out. But the writing of that is very different. And so that was different for me because I've never written anything like this. And it was very much like screenwriting is the greatest thing I can connect it with, because not only do I have to write the dialogue, but I have to write the actual directions for the illustrator. So, right.
Mm-hmm.
So in this box, Mammy's to the right and it's showing a shot of the side face, with in the background, we see, like, I have to actually write all of that out.
Okay.
So very similar to, I would say, screenwriting, where you might have the words, but you have to actually set up the scenes too.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So did you get to meet, so it's illustrated by Neil Evans. Did you get to work with him? Did you get to, decide, okay, this is the look I want? I mean, it is just an amazing illustrations, amazing style that just complement the story. So how close did you work with him beyond the direction that you wrote out?
Yeah, so usually what happens is your editor sits between you. You can't necessarily talk to the
Sure.
illustrator. We have since, but during that process, they purposely have. Sorry,
No.
the light went out.
That's okay.
They purposely have the illustrator, the editor in between the illustrator
Sure.
and the writer. But what happens? So Imagination Press gave a number of portfolios. And usually the press always has the first say of illustrator, but they've always been really great, especially with my picture book, of having the author's voice of picking. And so they gave a bunch of portfolios, and me being the nerd that I am, I did it like a little study. So I went around to a number of friends and said, look at all these portfolios. What speaks to you the most? And everyone kept coming up, Niels. And the way that he was able to just like capture different looks, the feel of it. And more importantly, it wasn't until an artist friend shared this, she said, what's really fascinating with Neil is that also drawing Black folks is not easy because you have to mix your own colors. You have to either put a red or a yellow behind and mix layers, right? And when we're going to have a book, which is going to have different color shadings, that's going to be really important. And so that's how I came to it. So his portfolio, I mean, it was hands down incredible. And he said yes. So the publicist said yes. Publisher said yes. The illustrator, he said yes, because it's a big task and it was a huge turnaround, but I'm so excited. And the big thing, and so with directive, working back and forth with the editor, was trying to get hair right, like natural hair. What does that really look like? But yeah, he came to the task. I haven't got to meet him yet. He lives in Wales.
Okay.
Yeah, so I haven't met him in person, but it's been nice chatting with him on emails.
Oh,
That's
wow.
awesome. That's awesome.
I wouldn't even have thought that. With, like you said, the skin tones and doing mixing the colors right. I wouldn't even have thought that was part of the process. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that just adds another layer to it.
Yeah.
Just about the beauty and the presentation of it as well. Now it's just not a graphic novel. You also include educational and activities in it as well. So given your background, I'm assuming that just automatically flows out of you.
Yeah, I always want, like, same with my picture book, Lulu, the One and Only. When we created that, that actually dropped in a good time, but unfortunately a sad time in our country. The book literally came out 3 days after George Floyd lost his life.
Okay.
And we were in lockdown, right? And parents were trying to figure out, like, how do we have these conversations around race? And so with that book, we had, like, on my website there, I created a free teacher and parent activity book and guidebook, right? So they can come and get it and, like, really interact with the book. But I thought with this one, especially because it's older kids too, like, let's just put that in the book. So there's actual activities in the book. So this way the youth themselves can just engage with it. This way, any teacher or educator that picks it up, it's just all right there. Because me, as a former classroom teacher, right, I just know how hard it is to get materials, think about activities, all that. I'd rather make it as easy as possible for anyone who's using it. So it's all included. So there's, little factoids, did you knows that are throughout after every chapter. There's an activity after every chapter. Example of an activity is picturing Black joy. So people can go out and take a picture of what does it mean, what does Black joy mean to you, and then
Yeah.
like tag it on Instagram, right? So there can be like a dialogue through social media and through photography that way. So there's a ton of there's Dr. Clark's original test that was actually redone. Neil redid it with pictures and stuff, so people can go out and be little psychologists and actually do some research. So yeah, I just wanted this to be a one-stop shop, right? So now it's not like the other book where they have to go to a website. Now it's all literally right here. Any activity, any factoid, it's all in one. It makes it easier for everybody.
How
That's
has
awesome.
the response been to the book? Tell us about that.
Yeah, the response has been good. You know, mainly it's been just seeing the youth coming back and responding, being like, "Yeah, I just sat down and read it in a day." And
Right.
I'm like, "Yes." So it's been really great there. I haven't heard much because of when it came out. I
Okay.
haven't heard much from the educators yet. I'm assuming with the new school year, I'll start to get more feedback from them.
Right.
You know, getting into the curriculum, how's it going? But yeah, so far it's been. I'm hearing it's engaging, which is what I want, right? That's ultimately what I wanted.
And when did it come out?
Absolutely.
How long has it been out?
It came out, well, it was supposed to, it had a weird drop. So it was supposed to come out April 30th, but then they rushed it to print in February to get Black History Month and Women's History Month. But I don't think many people knew it because all the date of the drop went out for April. So,
Yes.
so I don't know. I had 2 birthdays, I guess we'll say.
All right.
Sure.
That
And
is okay.
we're just going to start now the new, like you said, the new school year. And in April, May, we were ending up the school year. So yeah, it's hard to gauge that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I actually work in a school district. I'm going to send this book to one of the curriculum people and see if they would get it in on the reading list because it is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
If they want me to come chat via Zoom with the kids, I love doing that too. So,
that's
yep.
awesome. So is this going to be part of a series, you think, or is it just a one-off?
This is part of a bigger series they have. So this is the 3rd book in their series of Extraordinary Women in Psychology.
Okay.
So the first one was Evelyn Hooker, and her story, and the second book was about Bernice Sandler. Each of these are different authors. So this is the 3rd book in that series. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, graphic novel writing versus academic writing. Are you going to be a graphic novelist now, or are you just going to stick to what you've been doing?
It's living in the both and. So,
yeah. Okay.
The academic stuff. I mean, I do now more. I still do academic writing, but a lot of my work is actually doing because I do photo voice with teachers of color. So we've actually been doing virtual exhibits and physical like photography exhibits as the work, like curating those. So my academic work in that way is shifting. But no, I'm already working on the next graphic novel.
There it goes. There it
is. Yeah. So that's what I like doing. I really like doing stuff for youth and pieces that can go in the classroom. Because honestly, for many years, like this is a great example of academia. We know that you know, Black and brown folk as character, as in real life, aren't really represented in you know, the books and the curriculum. Just a few years ago, I think in 2020, a big report came out even with New York City School District, the largest school district in the country. And they actually went through with this report and looked at the curriculum and who's being represented, who the authors are, like in terms of their representation. And it's still just abysmal. And I'd rather not do the research around like it is. I'd rather keep doing stuff to get it into the curriculum and into the classrooms.
Exactly.
So,
Absolutely.
I'm doing my work from a different angle.
That's right. And you know what? We need everyone working from whatever angle they need to work from. You know, I was, you know, even before your book, earlier in the year, I had heard, and I had never thought about this, and I had to think about it because, you know, when I was in school a few years ago, you know, Brown versus Board of Education was one sentence in history. That was all they taught. So it was, schools were now integrated. And that was it. They didn't teach you about, I believe her name was Ruby, the little girl. They may have had that photo, but they didn't go into what happened with her that day or what happened afterward. They
Right.
didn't go into the how of it. And they did not go into the fact that a lot of teachers of who were brown and black lost their jobs. You know, so that to me was a new fact that I learned earlier this year before I picked up this book, but it was just reinforced, you know, when I read this book, because it was, again, something that was overlooked in history class. And it is, you know, just even understanding that I don't believe that that court case was a bad decision. It was just maybe nobody thought about the repercussions.
Fall out, yeah, from it. Yeah.
You know, what would happen after it. So that means that it is on us now to fix it however we can, you know. And if it's you writing another graphic novel, you know, if it's us advocating, if it's Victoria going in and going, hey, you guys got to get this book, you know, we all have to approach it from whatever end we can, you know, whatever end our job is, you know, whatever we can do, we need to do it. So
I
that's my
totally
point.
agree. I was telling Ruth too.
Absolutely.
That's the one I learned something from your book. I didn't know about the teachers, the black and brown teachers losing their jobs, and how that must have impacted the community. You know, financially, mentally, all the leads.
Mhm.
Wow, just amazing.
Yeah.
Was there
Yeah.
something that you didn't know as you were going through the history besides her life in general? Was there anything you learned from the process?
I don't think there wasn't anything surprising. I guess because it's my field. So in terms of
Yes.
that stuff,
Yeah.
I knew. You
Yeah.
know, I have been reflecting. We're 70 years now since Brown versus Board of Ed, right? It has a huge anniversary this year, and I've been reflecting on. Here we are 70 years later. Schools really aren't desegregated. That could be a whole other show. Right, there's still court cases around that. We see it in New Jersey. There's still a number of active court cases around this. And we have a curriculum where in certain states, you know, there's these banning of books. So
Yes.
right, so there's that's getting even more segregated versus desegregated. So it just, for me, it makes me reflective of, wow, this has been 70 years of this fight. There's been changes, don't get me wrong. You know, some good, some big and consequential for communities, such as, you know, teachers losing their jobs. But the battle still continues in different ways in the school classroom. So yeah.
Right. And in our district, there's still the fight for equitable pay, you know, period. You know, that some districts teachers make more, some teachers make less, instructional assistants, you know, so it's an ongoing fight for equal pay. And we were saying, and Ruth was saying, she said, I just bet you could trace all of this back to this decision where the teachers lost their jobs, and what were they supposed to do? You know, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah. And they didn't have to lose their jobs, right? But that's just how race was showing up, right? So white teachers can go into these spaces, but Black teachers weren't deemed worthy to teach white students, right? So, yeah. But you know, here we are still, and also just trying to fight for diversity of teachers still, even after all of these years.
Exactly.
You know, and that is where my academic work comes in, is, you know, how do we keep but also just retain teachers of color that make up 8% of our teaching population in this country.
And I think that the fight still continues too, for our self-esteem issues. Just looking at or your self-worth, or just a study that was done, and I read about the study in my psychology classes of the Black dolls versus the white dolls, and it could still be done today, and might still have some of the same outcomes. You know, do you find that?
It literally does. It probably I would say almost every decade. There's some psychologists. There's also some well-known people in the field like Dr. Margaret Spencer, who I think she just retired, but she was out in Chicago for a while, and she was at the University of Pennsylvania. She redid this study a number of times for a number of years, and the results keep coming up the same. So how do we make that shift of loving ourselves?
Right.
Yeah.
No, and I have to think about that. Obviously, I'm, Gen X, so it's been a few years, but I think back to even when my mom bought us, Barbie dolls. I was one of 4 kids at the time, 3 girls, and we played with a lot of dolls, but they were all fair skinned. Now we are Latinas, and back then there weren't a whole lot.
Right.
It was either black or it was white. And
Okay.
you look at the white, because the black is like, that's not me.
Right.
Beyond that not being me, comes in the culture, which is, oh, that's definitely not you, and
Right.
that in itself is another show. But it's just like, I when I read that part in the book, I had never heard of the study. So
Okay.
it brought back those memories to me, my mom purchasing those dolls, my mom, how we were taught to look at them and how they reflected on us. So, again, I'm Gen X, there's still the millennials, Gen Z, the Gen Y and the Gen Z, but I would, we're getting more representation in media and film and all of that. And I believe that plays into it. But again, even as a Latina, that is my point of view. I avoid watching cable, because all I see on there from a Latin point of view is that we are either maids or drug dealers or illegal aliens,
Yes.
that kind of thing. And that
Yes.
still has that still impacts how I see myself. So I can imagine that even if you did the study today, you would still get the same results.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
That was quite profound, Ruth, and it's true. I remember, I'm a baby boomer. Just skated in the last year there. And I'll be 60 next month. And I remember my mom bought us white dolls because it was hard to find a black doll. But when she could find the black dolls and afford them, I remember was this doll called Gabby. That I love Gabby. Gabby could like talk or whatever. I love that doll. She was black, but she still had that straight hair that was not my experience, So but now you're seeing more of the dolls look more ethnic, and even sometimes that I think is poorly done too, because everybody doesn't have that type of hair either. So it's just hard. But I remember definitely having black and white dolls, and I was made to feel like it was something wrong, because growing up in New York, you saw all cultures. I grew up seeing interracial couples, and my experience of black being wrong was watching stuff that happened on the news, but it didn't happen in my neighborhood. Well, we had the gangs, black against the Puerto Rican, that's what they call them, Puerto Rican gangs and things like that. But it was a culture shock to when I got to college and read about in my psychology class about the black dolls versus white dolls experience, and it was like, wow, mind blowing, and it still is.
Yeah, it still is. And it's interesting, like even thinking about how hard it was. I never had a black doll growing up. They were all white dolls. Couldn't find them in our community, right?
Yeah.
And even thinking about the actual dolls that were used for this experiment, so you could still see these dolls. They're displayed in DC at the African American Museum.
I gotta go.
Or I found this weekend people who live down there called the Blacksonian, and I was like, okay. But you can see it there. But the only difference is just because then you didn't even know. So it's literally like the white doll with like a coloring over it. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yep.
So there wasn't even a real black doll for the study.
No, I mean, because even then, I didn't even know. Like the fact that they even found that, I was like, hats off. They went to Woolworth and found that. So, like, I was like, okay, Woolworth. But yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just
that is
absolutely
amazing.
think your book is so important, and it brings back to the forefront this amazing woman who was so instrumental in such an important decision in the courts. And so my hat's off to you for it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
you
you
know,
did a great job.
as we said at the beginning, and we're gonna say it in the middle and at the end, get the book, get the book. Where can our viewers and listeners get your book or get in touch with you to tap into these resources and your website and all, because it's just phenomenal, and I personally pray it just continues to blow up, that your book will
Thank you.
get national attention because it deserves it.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so everyone can get the book wherever books are sold. You know, that could be Barnes and Noble or Amazon, or I would always say support your local bookstore. And if you ever want to reach out, to me, or to learn more about me, you can go to my website, which is LynetteMawhinney.com. And there's a feature there if you want to contact me, and I'll be in touch. I'm also on Instagram at LK Mawhinney.
All right, I'm getting ready to follow
Awesome.
you. Gonna follow you. Sure am. And by the way, I have already written my review for your book.
Thank you.
That's how impressed I was with it. As soon as I read it, I said, I got to get this a review. It's got
Mm.
it. So it's on there already, and that's me.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. It's just been a joy. I knew it. Look at this, almost 7:45. Time has gone so fast. Oh, but thank you so much, and we
Well,
just look
thank
forward
Yes.
to hearing more from you. And I'll definitely be following you now as a writer.
Great. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the work that you both continue to do, to support and uplift
Oh,
authors.
Yes,
of course.
thank you.
Of
We
course. It is,
thoroughly enjoy it.
I love. Yes. So, um, just as before we get ready to go, if anyone is interested in learning more about our show, if you have any questions, want to find out how to be on our show, email us at authorsup@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We have a YouTube channel as well. Just look for Authors Up Show. Follow, subscribe, like, and of course, just you can watch our show on our YouTube channel. You can also download our podcast. We do a replay on Facebook on Saturday night at 7 p.m. So please find us and let us know what you think.
All right. Yay. Thank you, Ruth. And thank you once again, everybody. We just appreciate you for being here. Please remember to watch the replay and come on back next week. As we always like to end and say, you never know what's going to happen on Authors Up. So we look forward to
All
seeing
right.
you next week right here at 7 p.m. Good night, Ruth. Good night, Bronx Girls. And
Good
much,
night.
much, much, much prayers and love to Andrea, who couldn't be with us tonight. We miss you, and we'll see you next week.
All right.